Hi, Black Hollywood Live fans. Today we're talking about the late breaking news on Alton Sterling and more on Justice is Served.
You are tuned in to Black Hollywood Lives. Justice is served.
Hello, Black Hollywood Live fans. Welcome to Justice is Served, where we're talking the latest legal stories every single week. Thank you for joining me. My name is Chelsea Galicia. I'm joined by my two co-hosts, who are also attorneys, Shaka Smith and Yemi Abayemi. And we are going to start off with the heartbreaking story of another man killed by police, this time in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. His name is Alton Sterling, and we are finding out about how graphic this incident was because of cell phone video that is coming out. I know that we're going to play the video. Does anybody want to say anything before we show the video, or should we play that first and then talk about our reactions and what we think is next?
Yeah, let's go ahead and play it, but just, I guess, a warning to the viewers, it is quite graphic.
Yeah, thank you for that. I mean, I've heard that it was, and I will be watching it with you for the first time, because I have, man, watching all of these videos I think is so necessary, but it gets very difficult emotionally after a while of seeing so many of them. So why don't we roll that, please? This video is taken from inside a nearby parked car. So we see them there slamming him on the roof of the car, and then they fall to the ground.
Oh shit! They shot him? Oh my goodness.
Thank you. All right, so what we saw there, or if you could, because I had to turn away because I knew what was coming, is the officers, two of them tased him, and then one of them found a gun in his pocket. His hands were already, controlled, like behind him, couldn't access it. So a cop then pulled out his gun, and then we hear, I think, a total of 5 to 7 shots.
Yeah.
All of this started over what?
Well, it seems like an anonymous call came in saying that they'd seen a man threaten someone with a gun, but Alton Sterling was out there selling music as he had typically done before. Yeah,
so I understand that Alton regularly for the last couple of years sold CDs in front of a convenience store with the owner of the convenience store's permission. Yeah. In fact, the convenience store owner said that 5 minutes before this happened, the two of them had been exchanging, teasing, joking around, and this happened right outside the front of the convenience store. We do not know what happened between the time that the cops rolled up and the footage starts, rolling. But I don't know what could have happened in that time that would justify this. Can you think of anything?
I mean, it's hard to tell. You hear some audio in the video where the officers scream, or someone screams. You hear someone scream, "He's got a gun," and I think at one point you might hear something like taser, and then you hear one of the officers say, if you move, I swear to God, something like that. So it's hard to know exactly what was, it's hard to know exactly what was happening or what they thought they heard or saw, or who said what as well.
But from that video, I would say it looked like a man that was restrained.
Yeah. And most of the time when I hear a man with a gun is involved in a police altercation, I'm a little bit more respectful to the police. Whatever they believed of the situation at the time. And Shaki, you were saying usually you do too.
Yeah, I tend to give them more deference. I let them judge the situation if there's someone with a gun with a deadly weapon. But from that video, what I saw was someone that had been duly restrained and in a matter of moments was dead.
Yeah, and I imagine that some people will say, well, he was a convicted felon, he should not have had a gun, and that's correct, it was against the law for him to have a gun, but the punishment for unlawfully carrying a weapon is not immediately shot to death on sight. So that would not be a justification for this.
Yeah, and I'm curious to know, I wish the video had started earlier, knowing that the call had come in saying that this person is armed, he has a gun. I'm curious as to whether, since this, I assume he was standing on the street selling his CDs, as an officer, I would imagine you approach them, we've got a call, do you have anything on you? If so, slowly, reach into your... I don't know how police officers manage those situations, but I would like to know, was there a conversation that took place when they approached the scene, kind of acknowledging, we know you have a gun, so this is how we want you to deal with it, versus just kind of trying to taser him and bring him down to the ground and restrain him. Those, to me, can easily lead to two very different situations.
My sense of the situation from what I've read is that when police got there, they talked to him and he was trying to say, what did I do wrong? And police officers were probably not responding to the question he had, or not kind of treating him civilly, so he may have resisted whatever his instructions that he was given by the officers when he's trying to find out, what have I done? Please tell me, what did I do wrong? And then so they're just not communicating, and then it gets heightened, escalated.
I think we may get some more video, because I believe they seized the surveillance footage of the actual place that he was outside selling the CDs, so at least we might have clearer video.
Yeah, as of now, there have been two different versions or perspectives, two different copies of the video. Yeah. And then they expect surveillance from the convenience store. And then also, the police officers had body cams, but they became dislodged. So it remains to be seen whether that will be useful at all, but clearly it's time for some better adhesive for those cameras.
There's also footage from the dash cam, the dashboard of the police car as well. So it looks like they'll at least be getting footage from multiple angles.
And hopefully not in some delayed process months from now, but soon.
That will be the thing the governor has come out and said, this video is disturbing, and they all do the whole full investigation, yada yada yada, that we're all so used to by now. I guess the question will be, how long is this full investigation going to take? Are we still going to be talking about this a year from now, or is this something where something's going to be done quickly? Because
I think it has to, because we've had so many delays with past cases, and the DOJ is involved right away here, so hopefully on that end we'll get things released a lot quicker.
This is some really sad, heartbreaking news. We see the son, his 15-year-old son, sobbing, desperate, so sad about the loss of his father. So at least we know of one child who will have some grounds for a civil rights claim against the officers, the department, which of course will never bring his dad back, but is a legal remedy in this situation, which is, it's so bad that that's all we can offer. Here is some money, and if it's consistent with what we've seen in other states, it may be something on the order of $4 or $5 million. It's kind of sad now that by now I kind of know the going rate for
murder.
So we will, of course, keep you updated on all the breaking legal news in the Alton Sterling case. We will move on now to a very different kind of case. Jay-Z's former engineer is in the news for filing a monster of a lawsuit, $200 million. The amount was just so much that I was like, I can't even take this guy seriously. What's he suing for?
Well, he's suing he's claiming that he has partial ownership of these recordings that I guess they recorded back in the late 90s, early 2000s. And so he's saying that he's suing for partial copyright ownership, that he's owed money on these recordings. Jay-Z is arguing that he has ownership of these recordings, and that
But the thing is, wasn't this whole there was a legal dispute about the ownership of the masters, and the engineer named Chauncey Mann lost.
Yeah.
Okay, so what is he upset about?
Well, what he lost was on the basis of that he took too long. So if he's still alleging some sort of fraud on behalf of Jay-Z, and
so he lost his ownership rights, his copyright rights, basically.
Any claim that he could have made to it.
Yes.
Because he waited 14 years to assert legal claim.
Yeah.
Okay, and then, but he's still upset with LAPD, NYPD, Rock Nation lawyers, studio, and suing all of them for tens of millions of dollars. Why?
The only basis I could think of would be something to do with negligence of not maybe placing his name on these masters and somehow not acknowledging that he was part of the process.
The police, LAPD and NYPD, I'm not sure how they colluded on this, took the physical recordings and have failed to this day to give them back, and so he's suing for $10 million. Have you $10 million? You don't even get that if you die, right? So I don't understand why. This is why this makes no sense to me, and I was hoping somebody here could straighten this out because suing.
I think as to the studio owner who he's suing for $20 million, I would imagine it must be a negligence claim for somehow not acknowledging that he was an owner on those masters. That's probably the only claim I could see.
Okay, but these people are getting really ridiculous. When people sue for $220 million, 10 million LAPD, 10 million NYPD.
Well, you have to remember, these are some of Jay-Z's most popular recordings that have earned tens of millions of dollars.
Doesn't matter how much they're worth. The LAPD doesn't. I mean, the value to the NYPD and NYPD doesn't depend on
if he thinks
how profitable they were to
If
Jay-Z.
he believes they somehow thwarted his ownership interest in this and cost him that money, absolutely. So
Or wrongfully took possession of it from him.
Because how the LAPD came into possession of these masters was through a sting operation in coordination with Jay-Z, and at the time they were seized by LAPD.
Well, now we're getting interesting here.
So at the time the LAPD seized this, Chauncey Mann did not know that they were going to be seizing these tapes. So he may have some claims in relationship to the, I guess, the legal procedure of the seizure.
Okay, and getting them back, but you don't see. Okay, good luck. I mean, I just don't see it. Am I missing something here?
Well, what's interesting is that it sounds like Chauncey was supposed to meet Jay-Z at this storage facility to exchange these masters for an amount of either $100,000 or $70,000. It's unclear how much. And so that was all Chauncey allegedly was asking for in the first place. So yeah, where this $200 million claim comes from, it's such a huge leap.
Okay, and I understand people get really pissed off, and then by the time people file a claim, they are like just done. They feel. I imagine that they feel like they've tried every last like non-legal way to deal with things, and then they go to get a lawyer and file the claim, and by that point they like get way dramatic with it, and then they lose all credibility to people like me. Like, good luck with that. When he may very well have a valid basis for the underlying claim, but then he blows it up so much that nobody could take this seriously.
Well, that's the thing. Why wait 14 years before you claim that you're you have ownership of it, or that you're owed royalties?
I imagine he didn't even think he had to.
Well, we're certainly missing a lot of details here in this case, but what has not been decided is his claims on a legal basis, so that will be something to look forward to. If it's not thrown out procedurally.
All right. In other legal music news, we're talking about Jerry Heller's defamation case. So last August, can't believe it's almost been a year now that the Straight Outta Compton movie came out. Jerry Heller, who was the group's manager, didn't see the movie before we all saw it, didn't know what was going to be in it, wasn't consultant, wasn't advised. He said he paid, $40 some odd to go see the movie on August 15th like the rest of us did. And he was really hurt by what he saw in the movie. He said he reviewed it frame by frame for hours with an attorney and felt that some of the scenes were so egregious that he needed to protect his good reputation and name and sue for defamation the producers and the studio and everybody associated with it. Some of the scenes that he didn't like that lobster brunch scene. He claims that he's never had lobster brunch. What other scenes do you remember that he didn't like? Something about not giving somebody a check.
Right, not giving Ice Cube a check for $75,000. There's a scene where he's saying that not to involve the lawyers in the signing of this in the deal.
Yeah.
That lawyers will only complicate the matter and raise problems.
Right.
Just go ahead and sign it.
So a federal judge this week tossed out most of the specific scenes or complaints that he felt were defamatory. But the judge left 2 of them in. Which ones were those? I think one of them was the one that Yemi was just talking about, right?
Yeah, they were both of them were related to related to the allegation that Jerry Heller encouraged them to not involve a lawyer.
Right,
in
saying
signing
that
their
lawyers
contract.
are paid to make trouble. Wonder where we got that idea from.
And then I think the other scene involved Ice Cube talking to a reporter about whether or not to involve a lawyer.
And so
both of them
it was
were,
like the publication of that meeting.
Got it. Okay, so those are the only 2.
Yeah.
All right.
But I found it interesting. The judge did say that scene did not allow the viewer to see Jerry Heller in a positive or even a neutral light, and that would cause a manager in the business to actually have a bad reputation. So he did pick a scene that he found met the standard for suing for this defamation claim.
So he's allowing it to go forward. This isn't a finding that it is defamatory, but that there's enough of a question for it to go forward.
Yeah, well, if not true, it's certainly defamatory.
All right.
Yeah.
So the next step or legal hurdle that Jerry has to prove is this malicious intent.
Well, so he has to prove 2 things. One, that it didn't happen, and then because it is a matter of public interest and he's kind of a limited public figure, he also has to show malice, so that the writers intentionally wrote this scene in the production
To make him look bad.
maliciously to make him look bad.
Any idea, thoughts on that part of the case he has to prove?
Well, showing some sort of bad blood between him and the group, and then having to then show that bad blood led to them putting it in the script might be very difficult. He might, unless he's able to see some sort of emails or communication that indicates so, and then proving something didn't happen is always tough to prove.
Yeah, and I thought this was really weird because I was looking back through some of the scenes that he was really upset about, and one of those scenes was that he didn't like that it showed Eazy-E fired him, and he's like, no, that's not true, that never happened. But that's one of the claims that the judge tossed. So based on what the judge tossed out, it doesn't seem that what Jerry's been saying has been holding up, and I wouldn't be surprised if this goes nowhere.
But I think there's enough publication out there and enough writings about that time period, and interviews that he might be able to find enough stuff to make a claim.
So
I think that's right in terms of there's a lot of information out there. People have written memoirs, there are articles.
including Jerry's.
Yes, and NWA has spoken about their relationship with their manager, so there's definitely information out there. I think, I think it might be difficult, as you said, to prove a negative and show them saying, no, of course, Jerry always advised us to sign contracts.
With the advice of a lawyer.
With the advice of a lawyer. It's hard to...
Or if a lawyer that they did hire says, I was recommended by Jerry Heller, then that's really going to kind of cut against that scene. So it'll be a high bar to reach, but I don't think it's impossible.
Yeah, there's always, I feel, a concern about limiting writers and producers' First Amendment rights, especially that this has been a topic that's been so prevalent in the industry. People just, take an interest to this topic. It's hard to say that, a producer or a writer can't offer their opinion or their take on what happened. If every opinion was then subject to
Well, that's why we're going to have that actual malice requirement. So, they now still have to show, even if it didn't happen, that they really were like, we want to screw Jerry Heller here.
Yeah. All right. So now let's toss this back over to Yemi for some fabulous words from our sponsor that allow this show to be brought to you free each and every week.
For those of you who haven't heard about FreshBooks, listen up. These folks are on a serious mission to help small business owners save time and avoid a lot of the stress that comes with running their business. It all starts with pain-free invoicing for freelancers and small business owners. FreshBooks has created a super intuitive tool that makes creating and sending invoices extremely simple. Crazy fast. Using FreshBooks, it can take about 30 seconds to create and send an invoice. Get paid online. FreshBooks gives your clients tons of ways to pay you online by credit card, which can seriously improve how quickly you get paid. In fact, customers get paid 5 days faster on average. Instant notifications. See whether or not your client has looked at the invoice the second they view it. So no more excuses from your clients saying they never received it. That's important. Late payment reminders. FreshBooks can send late payment reminders to your clients automatically so that you don't have to. Deposits. You can also use the FreshBooks deposit feature to invoice payment up front when kicking off your project. Custom branding. You can add your logo and color scheme so that your invoice reflects your brand. That's just the invoicing part. FreshBooks has so many other features to help keep you organized and streamline the business side. You have time tracking. FreshBooks will also handle your time tracking, so when it comes time to create an invoice, you know what you did and when you did it. Expenses. FreshBooks keeps track of your expenses ridiculously simple. No more boxes full of receipts. Bank import. Automatically import and categorize your expenses directly from your online banking system. Also, their mobile app lets you take photos of your receipts, and FreshBooks organizes them later. It can create expense reports for you and also makes claiming expenses at tax time a breeze. You can see everything, which clients still owe you, so which invoices have been paid and how your business is doing right on the dashboard when you log in. There's also reports and analytics. You can know your financial numbers at a glance. FreshBooks makes it easy to generate detailed reports so you can find out who's slow to pay and breeze through tax time. FreshBooks integrates with over 30 add-ons that will make running your business even easier. And customer support. Our award-winning customer support will help you with any questions. No phone trees or robots, just a real live person when you call. FreshBooks is offering 30 days of unrestricted use to all of our listeners, totally free right now, and you don't need a credit card to sign up. To claim your 30-day free trial, go to freshbooks.com/geek, that's Geek, pardon me, and enter Geek Nerd Tech in the How You Heard About Us section.
Okay, great.
They do a lot of things, yeah.
Thank you so much, FreshBooks.
Extensive.
All right, and now turning to, I guess, a segment I'm calling Politics and the Law. Let's talk about Shaka's favorite First Lady, Hillary Clinton. Yesterday, the FBI recommended no charges in this ongoing saga. It's been over a year that they've been looking into her use of a private server for email use. Actually, there were several servers, and about whether she was skirting the rules and, passing classified emails over this server when she was Secretary of State, and whether that put us at risk. There was a whole hoop people were anticipating any day now the FBI is going to indict her. No charges. Is this fair compared to other figures, on her level, to be looked at or scrutinized in this way? Is she getting special treatment, or you think, oh, this is pretty fair? I guess we'll no bias, but we'll ask Shaka first.
Yeah, no bias at all. I think we'd all expected this, or a lot of us expected this for quite some time now, based on who they actually had gone for.
Expected that there was going to be
no charges. Yeah.
I don't know. I was wondering, maybe.
Based on precedent.
Okay.
And so we had seen with General David Petraeus that he was indicted for a felony.
This was a huge head honcho in the military, right? He led the efforts in Afghanistan, right? Yeah. And he was a very well-respected general. And then we come to find out, not only had an affair, but he gave that lady
a classified
diary
of classified information.
Right.
His biographer, and his biographer turned lover.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And then he lied to federal investigators about the whole incident.
So that's the closest sort of person that we have to compare this Hillary Clinton story to.
Yeah, and in the past, the indictment for that kind of malfeasance, they always carried this extra malice, essentially, requirement. And so that one was the most recent that came close to mirroring what Hillary Clinton people were alleging took place.
So what happened in that case, that was a really egregious violation of the protection of classified information.
Yeah, it was handed specifically over to someone else.
And on top of that, and then lied about it to the FBI.
When they asked him about it.
So then he was indicted on felony charges.
However, he was able to plead it down to a misdemeanor.
So he got a misdemeanor for that. And so no wonder Hillary got nothing.
No, well, I would call that a little bit of special treatment. But when you look at the cases they've looked at in the past, they've all been that egregious, if not more. So
where they're making false statements to the FBI
yeah.
or trying to cover up information.
And they specifically handed over these classified documents to another person who was not
intentionally, and not over a server where they may have been hacked. Okay. Well, I guess an argument could be made because she's been going around for all these months now saying that there were no transmissions of classified information over these servers, but.
Which is incorrect, because there was definitely classified information.
Yes.
And
we don't know how much.
We do know how much, yeah.
I heard just the only detail about the number was just a small amount.
No, in terms of how many, so I think there were about 30,000 emails. I think about 100 of them contained classified information, and that's distinguished from the quote-unquote small number of emails that were marked classified at the time that she received and sent those emails.
So we do know that number that were marked is apparently less than 110.
Okay.
And so, so it's not a lie if you reasonably believe it to be true at the time you're telling it.
I don't know. This is a very interesting interpretation of what does a lie mean. I mean, because was she mistaken? But how do you go for months and months and months saying the same thing over and over? Well, no classified emails were delivered over that server.
And I think didn't at some point she kind of shift her speaking in terms of saying, no classified information was sent versus there was nothing that was marked classified. Well, in either case, it's both.
But I mean, she's maintained that nothing she ever sent or received at the time it was sent or received was marked classified.
But this report shows that that's not the case.
Yeah, and so, but legally, as long as you have a reasonable belief of something to be true and you say that thing, a reasonable belief that it's true. And so the question would be, is it a reasonable belief that she didn't send her classified items that were marked classified if that number is less than 110 out of the thousands of emails she sent to Secretary of State over those years? And for me, I say yes.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm on the same page.
Yeah, I don't know that I would agree with that either. I mean, they said that it's just extreme carelessness. I mean, that's a lot.
But if they had found
and that a reasonable person probably would have known better, essentially.
No, right. Anybody else in her department or on her that would have done this, they would have at least been fired. She wasn't fired for this.
I'm talking about with regards to whether or not she's lying about saying she never sent or received classified information. Does she have a reasonable belief that she never sent or received classified information? If they find that less than 110 emails over the course of the thousands she received and sent as Secretary of State were marked classified, I believe it's a reasonable belief for her to believe she never did. And that's the only standard that would be there for a prosecution. If they didn't believe that, they would have prosecuted her.
I think it depends on what type of information are we talking about. Because we have this, so there's classified information, and they're at different levels. You have secret, you have top secret, you have confidential. Yeah. So is it reasonable, something that's top secret, you probably know at the time that you're sending it, this is not, this is a problem. Versus something that might just be confidential, maybe there is, maybe you didn't realize how big how big
we are slicing this really thin.
But I think if we're talking about reasonableness, I think that matters, because it's hard for me to say that you can receive top secret information and not realize that you're sending it.
So do you believe that if you received less than 100 emails that were marked classified,
well,
at the time
I don't know. I've never received a classified email, but I would think that I would take them seriously, even if there were 2 or 100.
No. If you received 100 over the course of several years, and the pool of emails is 60, 70,000 emails that you're sending back and forth, is it reasonable to believe you never don't remember having received those emails? I think so. Because that small subset over the course of years.
I guess we can go back and forth. So, I mean, legally it doesn't look like this is going to amount to anything.
If they had believed she lied, then she would have been indicted. Mm-hmm. So I think they took the same analysis.
Then the DOJ is probably not going to go near this, although there's been a lot of a controversy about Attorney General Loretta Lynch meeting up with
Bill Clinton at the tournament, which was just stupid, especially optics-wise, just absolutely stupid. But she did say
to meet up.
Yeah, of course. And so she did say at the time, though, she'd be following the FBI's recommendation.
All right. So this is done and over in the legal sense. Of course, the court of public opinion will probably not ever be done with this.
Donald Trump will probably cease on. I mean, I'm sure he already has ceased on it. Crooked Hillary, it's rigged.
And also Jake Sullivan, Huma Abedin, and Cheryl Mills, her aides, were also cleared. So we know that was a big,
Okay.
wide net that was cast.
Great news for her.
If she wins, I mean, if she wins the election and is back in the White House, I just hope that she will take more care with the information that she's receiving.
Yeah, and we do know that as a result that those particular aides may not be cleared for certain levels of clearance, possibly due to this whole. So it may affect their future administrative work.
Interesting. All right. Another interesting cross in politics and the law. So you may have heard by now that there's a lot of dark money flooding our politics, which means a lot of money from sort of unknown, secret, hidden sources coming in to fund elections, support certain candidates, and either to support that candidate or really to bury the other one.
And I think a lot of people don't know. So I think
okay. So this is welcome to your dark money lesson of the day. But me personally, I believe that this is one of the biggest issues in our generation is to end the corrupt influence of money on our politics. So I was really fascinated to find an article that says that it's because of a landmark civil rights case that these dark money donors are hiding behind. So it turns out that they're using this case from 1958. It was the NAACP versus Alabama. This was the Supreme Court decision that allowed the NAACP to withhold the names and information of their members. Because I was going to say if you remember the 1950s, but I wasn't around for that. What I understand was happening in the 1950s were things like lynching, the KKK was burning crosses. These kind of really serious, violent, dangerous things were happening to people who were trying to fight for their civil rights. And so when the government wanted the name of the members of the NAACP sued. They said no, took it all the way up to the Supreme Court. And the Supreme Court said that the First Amendment right to speech and free association
And private association.
protects the NAACP from releasing these names.
Yeah.
So now these organizations like Americans for Prosperity, which is a Coke-backed monstrosity, and other similar organizations are using that case to fight off having to be named that they're contributing
disclose
money.
their wealthy donors.
Yes. All right. What did you think when you were seeing this? Did you think, well, this is like a fair application of a civil rights case to dark money?
Yeah, initially I did think it was a fair application.
If anybody thought this was fair, I thought for sure you might think it was fair.
No, initially I did think it was fair because the first case, NAACP versus Alabama, was predicated upon the violence that was taking place with a lot of the members, or with against black people at this time. And the defense here was, we get a lot of death threats. We get these very serious threats that we need to address. And the judge said, I'd rather not wait for something to happen and do this. And I thought that was a very interesting ruling.
So it's sort of a protective measure because these dark money entities are being harassed or
And the threats
threatened.
are serious.
I don't know. That was different. I didn't like that myself, just because you're talking about actual violence, bombings, shootings, various types of reprisals. Versus, I think it was reported that the Koch brothers, received a Twitter something to their Twitter account saying that I'll kill you. I think it's.
But that is the new kind of terror in some ways that might lead to actual reprisals.
I just think there's a difference between everyone these days has that likes to puff their chest behind social media and say things that and say things or claim they would do things that they're just never going to do. To me, it just feels terrible comparing that to actual, real violence that was visited upon these individuals in the NAACP. Personally,
I do agree in some respects, but I just like the reasoning of seeing very serious threats and the judge saying, I'm not going to wait and allow this to take place. However, I did kind of change my mind because I had lost.
Oh, thank goodness.
Yeah, I had lost the context of the time, and to me, what was a more salient argument by the NAACP, the president spoke about it, was that not only were there just general violence, but the state was going to take these lists and give it to the KKK. They were going to give these lists to the employers. So they weren't just going to take these lists in and maybe publish them anywhere. They were going to use these particularly to hurt
on
these
purpose.
members. Yeah.
Yes.
And so
with the malicious intent to cause harm to these people.
And we forget those are the things that were happening at the time that made that rise to what I think is a higher level of kind of danger for those members.
Yeah.
And so we don't have that here in that case. And upon that distinguishment is why I think this may have been decided incorrectly.
Yeah, because usually I'm all for the creative use of case law in one area impacting that of another. In this one, I was like kind of offended. Maybe only because I think this dark money issue is so terrible and not at all like protecting people who were just trying to claim the rights that they should have already been able to exercise. Yeah, I mean, did you have any other thoughts about why? I think we both think that this is ridiculous that they're using this case.
But case law's got to wash both ways. So, you know, and I think that's probably the good thing about the legal system is that it can wash both ways over time. And so it's kind of an equitable system, even if it looks not, you know, if it looks partisan at times.
But in this case, are they even speaking about? Because I thought it was that this would just be a disclosure to the IRS, for example, not necessarily a public disclosure. Even.
Oh yeah, because that's a whole nother aspect of this story. That these foundations, these like nonprofits, are amassing millions of dollars to give, and because nonprofits are not supposed to be political, but they're skirting all sorts of rules around that, and so yeah, this is another reason why I'm.
And their claim is that these filings that are supposed to be private are routinely disclosed, that are routinely ending up public.
But is it routinely? Yeah, I mean, I think that I know that there has been an interest where maybe donor lists have been up briefly, and you know they rectified the situation and took it down. I don't know how common it is.
Yeah, I don't
know that means that you know there just should be no disclosures whatsoever.
And I also think we should be looking at the net effect, like the effect of releasing the NAACP members' names was to purposely create a dangerous situation.
Yeah.
The purpose of keeping secret these dark moneyed names is to protect corruption.
Yeah, and I don't agree with the decision, but I do have sympathy with the fact that if I were a donor and I'd seen these sort of threats, I would be happy that I felt protected in that way.
All right, fine.
So I have some sympathy for that.
I mean, until we get money out of politics, we can hope for, you know, voter engagement, people voting and actually looking behind the pretty ads and, you know, whatever. I can go on and on forever, so I'm going to stop myself now and talk about another fascinating article that we found on a journalist. This was on Mother Jones. A journalist went undercover for 4 months at a private prison posing as a corrections officer and wrote a really seriously amazing article that I encourage you to check out. He went undercover at CCA, which was one of the two of the largest private prison, I think it's like Corrections Corporation of America. That these are like billion-dollar publicly traded companies. So did you know you can, you know, from the comfort of your own home, go on the New York Stock Exchange and invest in a private prison? And apparently it's pretty profitable. They're making about $3,300 a year in profit per prisoner. These private prisons have these like guaranteed, what do they call them? Guaranteed occupancy rates, so that the government has to pay the company even if there are the beds open. I mean, these are just some of the crazy things that the private prison lobby has been able to do because of the undue influence of money in politics. Oh God, here we go again. But what were the things that you saw in this article that were particularly shocking or disturbing to you that this guy experienced as he went undercover?
Well, I mean, I think you mentioned one part of it was just all of the money that is present in these private correctional facilities, how much money that they can make just by having a prisoner present.
Like in 1 year, 2015, the CEO made $3.4 million, which is 19 times the salary of the director of the Federal Bureau of Prisons. So huge money to be made.
A lot of money to be made, and kind of this perverse incentive to keep these prisons full. And how do you do that? You know, kind of by maybe over policing or over sentencing people and things like that. So
and then once they're in there, any like good. Remember that part in the article where some guy acted up, and so he went for a trial. right? But it was within the prison. And that prison, that trial, which was over in 2 minutes, took away any like early release for good behavior. Right? Well, and then that made the prison an extra $1,000 because now he would be there an extra 30 days. So it incentivizes the prison to take away like education. There were no access or barely any access to like the law library. What you want is to create unsophisticated, non-educated people to go out into the world and create, be forced to commit another crime, and so that they can come back to your prison.
Yeah.
I think this is totally wrong. Anybody else think differently?
Well, we did have that one talk about if you're going to have private prisons, you need to give prisoners choice, because when you actually have choice in the market, then things get better in the marketplace.
Yeah, because you would raise that interesting question like, okay, if private prisons are wrong, why aren't private hospitals wrong? And I was like, well, because for a hospital, we all have a choice as to which hospital we want to go to. And if we hear of one
lowering their standard of care to save money, then no one's going to go to that hospital.
Right, and so they have to keep up and they have to spend the money to make the quality stay high. In a prison, people don't get a choice.
Yeah.
They don't get a choice. And also, I mean, one of the things that this reporter talked about a lot was just the way that they were cutting costs all the time. There were certain guards at other prisons making $3 more an hour than these prisons here, or there were certain areas that were unmanned. I think the watchtower, for example.
Oh my God, it was so. This thing sounds so dangerous. I mean, it sounded like Orange is the New Black in real life,
but worse. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So that anywhere they could cut costs and increase that, profit per inmate, they were doing so.
It's just so disgusting that we are profiting off of prisoners.
And then that's at the expense of the safety of the prisoners.
And
it's
because
at the
it's
expense.
private, you actually have that duty to your shareholders to cut those costs.
And,
it's a weird incentive.
And the argument that it actually saves taxpayers money is actually a wash. Between the studies that show it actually increases it or decreases it, if it does decreases, it's so minimal that it cannot justify the way that we're treating human beings like animals, really.
Yeah.
So, all right, thank you so much for joining us on this week's episode of Justice is Served. My name is Chelsea Galicia. You can tweet me at Chelsea Galicia.
My name is Shaka Strong. You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Shaka Strong.
My name is Yemi Abayami. You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Ayemyems.
And don't forget to join us again next week for another episode of Justice is Served. Take care, everyone.
From executives Keven Undergaro, Dario Kristen, Tiana Hobson, and the entire BHL staff, we would like to thank you for supporting Black Hollywood Live, the first online broadcast network dedicated to African American entertainment. For questions and comments, contact us. info@blackhollywoodlive.com. Like us on Facebook, tweet us, or Instagram us at BHL Online. And I am the official voice of Black Hollywood Live, Scipio, Instagram at KingXOBay. Thanks for tuning in.
Hollywood redefined.
The views expressed here are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of BHL or its owners or principals.